From the Homestead Studios in Santa Clarita, California, this is a Headache Soul production. Welcome to Just the Tip-Sters, America's favorite true crime podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Morgan. With me today is my handsome and talented co-host, Joshua Feta Bevan.
Feta.
Crumbles easily under pressure.
I mean, you're not wrong.
And we were just discussing.
We were just discussing.
No, you were. I was just trying not to, be traumatized. We were discussing pasta. So yeah, I was like, oh, this is going to be good.
Perfect.
Feta. He is such a feta, this boy. You're a feta boy. Yeah. So I think next week, Joshua and I are going to be talking about a movie we saw late night with the devil and some of the conspiracy theories that they brought up beautifully. But I think he and I have some opinions about what it's based on, the real thing it's based on in Northern California. Nice. So I think that's going to be good. So be prepared next week. It may be much less murder. There'll still be some things mentioned because the conspiracies are hilarious about what they do in this group. But yeah, I think it's going to be fun. But we're still on murder this week. And it's, oh boy, is this one. This was a big one. And I wish I could remember who sent me this because I was unaware of him. And then the more I dug in, I was like, this person was just I don't believe in terms like good and evil. I think man is inherently good. I think there's definitely evil. I don't like to attribute it to human beings. I think human beings enact evil acts. Sure. But this guy might actually be the definition of evil.
Real evil?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. It's really uncomfortable and terrible. But before I get to that, thank you, Malaysia, for putting us back on the Apple charts. I don't understand you, but I love that you do this. We're up, we're down, we're up, we're down. But it's amazing that you put us on your Apple charts for true crime. And if you enjoy this content, I'm going to ask that you go to Apple Podcasts or whatever service you're streaming this on and leave us a rating or a review. I would be very, very grateful. I want to also mention that this episode is brought to you by Graveline Tours. Our friends at Graveline, you can find them online if you even just search graveline.rip. And if you would like to take any of the wonderful tours, if you're in the Southern California area, please, in the promo code area, put Tipster40 and you get 40% off. And I know it's, at some point we're going to go on the goddamn Black Dahlia tour.
Yes, please.
It's amazing that it just keeps, we book it and something weird happens and we book it and other weird shit happens. It's almost like Elizabeth Short's trying to keep us from finding out about her life and death. But we're going to find out, Liz. We're going to find out. I wanted to say a special thank you to Tipster Janelle, who sent us, I don't even know if I mentioned it to Joshua yet, the most lovely email. She is a graduate student, and I believe military, or maybe former military, but a beautiful young girl who is actually living in Northern California, but she's originally from Kentucky, and she is taking online courses, which I didn't even know they could do it online, which I'm really happy to hear, at the University of Louisville, where I took the course in managing media for law enforcement with the Southern Police Institute. She's actually in the criminal justice department.
Cool.
Yeah, at the University of Louisville with our friend, Dr. Virginia Braden, who we interviewed, golly jeepers, 2020, I think, maybe. I should get the episode number, but Dr. Braden is an instructor at the University of Louisville. She is a private investigator, and she works on unsolved and missing person cases, and she is a spectacular, special human being. And she had recommended the podcast to her students, which was so kind. Mm-hmm. And Danelle was using for a paper, familial DNA. And she had talked about the Golden State Killer. And she said, I actually found out about Lonnie Franklin Jr., and the grim sleeper in Los Angeles who killed over 50 women. She said, I found out about that through your podcast. And I was using that as, one of the references in my paper. Cool. So that made me feel really special. And she wrote just the most lovely email about the podcast. So I'm really grateful to her. And there's also a sweet person on YouTube, and her handle is so funny. It's Grandma is Pissed.
Okay.
And she doesn't look like a grandma, but she was like, I don't know why your podcast doesn't have many more listeners. Each one's fantastic. So she's just a lovely human being. So thank you for that. It's been a really nice week of people, like very small and yet huge to me, little pats on the back.
Right.
And, I know we're not supposed to like, if we listen to those, we have to listen to the ones that say, your podcast is terrible too.
I don't think so.
Well, that's good to hear. Thank you. Thank you.
Listen to the praises and
I
ignore
know
the haters.
that you're not supposed. Well, ignore the haters, yes, but it's just you're supposed to remain sort of balanced. But it's been such a nice week. My sweet friend Bronwyn, who started the Widows and Widowers group, took a screenshot of the podcast logo up on the screen in her SUV. And she was like, I just want you to know I'm listening to you when I'm driving around for work, which was so sweet because, they say like you can't go home again. Like the people around you that you love the most don't always listen to your podcast.
Sure.
And the people that you've never met say things that make you think they know you better than, so it's just nice when someone in your life that listens.
Yeah.
So I wanted to say, also, at the same time, thank you to Tipster Michael, who drives all over California, the state of California, and he's listening. And he said, he just loves everything about it and the way that I started to say the way that you and I talk to each other, but the way I'm mean to you. And no, I said that, not him. He's a much kinder person than me. But I have to say this, I always feel like it gives me street cred when dudes listen. Because true crime is totally, very female dominated. So my letter carrier in my neighborhood is a very sweet man, also named Mark. And he started about 6 months before my Mark passed away. And so I knew his name was going to be easy to remember because it's Mark.
Right.
And I always try to I know all the people since we've lived here. We had Gary, we had Judy, we had Karen, and we have Mark.
Okay.
Since I've lived here, those are the people. And because I'm so grateful to them, So Mark is very young, hip dude, and funny as fuck, just adorable. And I think I didn't tell him, but I think he became aware, when Mark passed away. And but every time we see each other, we wave or whatever. So the other day, he gets out of his truck, and I happen to have the garage door open. And so I walk down to the end of the driveway, and he goes, "Hey, I got a box for you." And I go, "Oh, okay." And it's pretty big, but it was light. And I go, "I can carry it." He goes, "I'll take it up to your porch." And I go, No, you don't have to. Thank you, Mark. I can. So I took the box, and he goes, "Hey, by the way, I just want you to know, I listen to your podcast when I'm driving around." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, thank you." And he goes, I'm going to start to cry. He goes, "You do such a great job. I love what you do. And I want to commend you on going back to school."
Wow.
I know.
Aww.
I know. And I was like, "Mark, I can't even tell you what that means to me. And thank you." And, so it's been a week of some really nice pats on the back. And I am very grateful for that.
Good.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Such a sweet guy. Yeah. I'm very, very blessed. It was, like I said, a really good week of people that I, adore and respect telling me they listen. And that's,
cool.
Terrific. So,
Good.
Yeah, it's very nice. Even when I'm mean to you, they still listen.
I like to think she doesn't mean it, but
yeah, you keep thinking that. You keep thinking that, cutie pie. Just drink your Coke Spice. Coke Spice, really good.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a strange one that I feel ignorant that I didn't know much about it. And it's had some updates in the recent years. And I never like to delve into the, why would someone do this? Like it maybe he was terribly abused as a child, and they say hurt people. Sure. But you know what? So many people I know have been very abused as young people, and they do the opposite.
Right.
And they are good to other people, kind and respectful. And this guy was just a monster. I mean, I don't even know what else to say. He was just a monster. So Robert Zarinsky, they call him, like the probably most prolific serial killer in New Jersey. And the sad thing is, we will probably never know all of his victims because he taunted police with his weirdness. What I think is really fascinating is the first person he was convicted of murdering, they indicted him with no body.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was 1975.
Wow.
Yeah. He is something else, this guy. So he's sentenced to life imprisonment for the 1969 murder of Rosemary Calandriello. She was 17 and she was from Atlantic Highlands, New Jersey. And it's such a strange thing to think in 1975. I was unaware that no body cases were even, I thought they started around 1980 because it's so hard to get.
Right.
It used to be not that I hate to think that we're killing people more, but maybe because there's more people now. But, let's say the 40s and 50s, it's like, hey, no body, no case.
Yeah. I mean,
that was just a given.
It's still really, really hard to do it without.
You're exactly right.
It's not a for sure thing.
Right.
But
yeah,
if you can manage to hide the body, you're gonna at least have a good chance of getting away with it.
And maybe never being found until after you're dead or something.
Sure.
I mean, to me, I love that, Lao Tzu from The Art of War, the three things will never go unseen: the sun, the moon, and the truth.
Yeah, there you go. I
love that. But sometimes maybe the truth doesn't come out until the person who's responsible is already gone. And we've found that,
Sure.
with
Absolutely.
DNA and recently. But I mean, this guy just, yeah. So here's some of the cases and what they think happened. He was, sentenced to life imprisonment in 1975, which is just phenomenal to me, especially since Rosemary Calandriello went missing in 1969.
Okay.
In 2000, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So he got life on that one case.
Mm-hmm.
That one, okay.
A no-body case.
That one no-body
Yep.
murder case, and they convicted him.
1975.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm. In 2001, he was acquitted of the 1958 murder of a New Jersey police officer named Charles Bernosky. We're going to go over the details of that. Here is okay. So they think oh God, I hate to say this. It makes me cringe. The span of his crimes, 1958 to 1974. So in 74, I guess, is when they arrest him. And then he, is sentenced in 75 for Rosemary Calandriello. In 2008, he is actually indicted for the 1968 murder of Jane DeRua, who was 13.
Jesus.
And he died before they could take him to trial.
Wow.
Yeah. He died at the age of 68 in prison of pulmonary fibrosis, which, I hope was long and painful.
God.
He looked really sick by the time he died, but not sick enough.
Okay.
And he, up to the day he died, taunted the police and said,
Jesus.
You know what? I can help you solve 10 homicides, but I'm not gonna.
Wow.
Yeah.
Help you solve 10 as like admitting
his victims,
admitting to 10
mm-hmm.
but not.
Mm-hmm.
God.
They get him for one more posthumously. You'll hear about that. And it's just, when you hear the evidence about a couple of others, it has to be him. I guess DAs could say, well, there just wasn't enough evidence. Well, it's pretty clear that he is responsible for, I have to say it legally, he's the prime suspect in the murders of Linda Balabanow, who was 17, Doreen Carlucci, who was 14, and Ann Logan, who was 19. And I have, what happened in their murders. So Rosemary, the one he was actually convicted, was 17 years old, and she disappeared August 25th of 1969. Her body has never been found, but he was, sentenced to life imprisonment for the crime, and even on appeal, it was upheld. He was the first person in New Jersey to ever be convicted of murder without the victim's body having been found.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. In 1988, he claimed he accidentally killed Rosemary and buried her body in Northwest New Jersey.
Uh-huh. So he accidentally dug the hole and accidentally filled it back in?
Oh, but wait. He then said, oh, you know what? I threw her body into the Atlantic. Right. There's zero about him that can be trusted.
Yeah.
He's just, when I say definition of evil in a human form, I kind of mean it.
Yeah.
I mean, we've covered some really, really bad cases.
Yeah.
This is just terrible.
Okay.
Terrible. So in 2001, he's tried and acquitted of the murder of the police officer, Charles Bernowski. Bernowski came upon a burglary in progress at a Pontiac car dealership in Rahway, New Jersey. He was shot and killed by one of the burglars. So it's either Robert Zarinsky or his cousin, Teddy Schiffer. Bernowski shot both suspects. They were able to elude capture. No one was charged with the murder until 1999. Theodore Schiffer had left a fingerprint at the scene of the Pontiac burglary, but it was not until 1999 that the fingerprint was matched to him. He'd never been fingerprinted, and therefore there was no record of his fingerprints. He pled guilty to burglary and served 3 years in prison.
Oh, wow.
Uh-huh.
I wonder how that fingerprint eventually came up. Like he was getting a library card or something.
Right, at the Pontiac dealership. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, no, I don't know. Interesting.
Why did he eventually get fingerprinted?
Interesting.
And then the system pops up. Hey, remember this?
Yeah,
boop, boop.
From 1958 to 1999.
Wow.
So he had 41 years of, being free.
Yeah.
What's interesting to me is that he was implicated as an accomplice in the burglary and murder in testimony from Robert Zarinsky's sister, Judith.
He was originally implicated. Oh, okay.
And she was under investigation for embezzling $121,000 from a mutual fund that was owned by Zarinsky. So maybe Zarinsky said, you testify that this guy killed the cop, and I will let it go that you took this money.
Got it.
Right. She assisted her mother with removing bullets from Zarinsky and Schiffer on the night of the murder.
Oh, okay.
She said that Robert Zarinsky said to her, Teddy and I shot a cop.
Jeez.
Right. Despite the testimony of Teddy Schiffer and Judith, his sister, their credibility and motives were questioned. Therefore, Zarinsky was acquitted of the murder.
Yeah. Okay. That's hard.
When he was indicted in 2000 for the murder, Charles Bernowski's wife, Betty, the widow, filed a wrongful death lawsuit against him in civil court. In August of 2003, a jury found Zarinsky responsible for the death and awarded Elizabeth Bernowski $9.5 million plus interest.
Okay.
In 2004, $154,000 was seized from Zarinsky's assets, and Mrs. Bernowski divided this award among her legal representatives, her 6 children. From prison, Robert Zarinsky appealed the verdict. Eventually, it was reversed. The court said it overturned the judgment because the lawsuit was not allowed under state law. In 2007, a New Jersey appellate court upheld the decision and ordered the money returned to Zarinsky. Elizabeth Bernowski no longer had the money and thought she was going to lose her home. The New Jersey Patrolmen's Benevolent Association organized efforts to repay it and spare Mrs. Bernowski and her children from having to return the money from their own pockets.
Huh. Okay.
Isn't that nice?
But he gets it back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Go spend it on
things in the commissary.
Yeah. Right.
Peanut butter cheese crackers.
Right.
I hope he choked on them.
Yeah.
In March of 2008, a grand jury returned an indictment against Zarinsky for the 1968 murder of 13-year-old Jane DeRua based on DNA evidence. She went missing on the evening of November 4th of 1968. Her body was found the next morning in a field in Middletown, New Jersey.
Jesus.
Yeah. This is the one that is posthumous, and On February 17th of 2016, the New Jersey State Police Major Crime Unit and the Monmouth County Prosecutor's Office announced that newly examined DNA evidence linked Zarinsky to the 1965 death of Mary Klinsky. Klinsky was raped and beaten to death. Her naked body was found near Telegraph Hill in Holmdel, New Jersey in 65. Now,
Wow.
He died in 2008, but isn't that just adorable? What a fascinating guy.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah. So here's, the evidence from the robbery, burglary, and shooting of Officer Bernosky. I mean, I guess the fact that they got him on anything, that's why I still think it's so fascinating that the first thing he's indicted on is a nobody case when there was so much, evidence, I'm going to say, left over the years of his terror. Mm-hmm. So in March of 1969, 17-year-old Linda Balabanow was working her shift at a drugstore in Roselle, New Jersey. She disappeared after leaving her job at 5 p.m., and she did not return to her family home that night. The next day, March 27th of 1969, her mother reported to police that her daughter had not returned from her work the night before. When she was reported missing because she was 17, she was, considered a runaway, even though she had left all of her money, all of her things at home, and she was attending Union High School, and she loved to write poetry and draw. Shit. Her body was found 1 month later, April 27th, in Woodbridge Township, floating in a river near a dock. She was nude from the waist down, but there was no rape evidence, maybe because she was in water.
Sure.
A truck tire chain was wrapped around her neck. Her dress was wrapped around her face and head and tied with an electrical cord around her neck in what's called a granny knot.
Oh, jeez.
Her hands were bound with rope. Her shoes are missing. She had a fractured skull from blunt force head trauma. Her jaw was broken, and she was beaten about the face. She'd been strangled with the electrical cord, but ultimately was killed by a blow to the head.
Wow.
4 months after Linda was found, a 16-year-old girl named Rosemary Calandriello was reported missing. Her body was never found, and Robert Zarinsky became the prime suspect. It's so interesting, I can't believe they got him on a nobody case. He was, even back then, looked into for the murder of Mary Ann Klinsky, which, it wasn't tied to him till 2016.
Sure.
Police also suspected he killed Joanne Delardo and Donna Carlucci. They're both two teenagers who were also strangled with electrical cords around the neck, but there was never enough evidence to prosecute him on those. When they started the search in 1975 to find out who killed Rosemary in 1969, they executed a search warrant on Robert's car. They found a hammer that contained skin and hair that strongly resembled the blonde hair of Linda Ballanbow.
Okay.
Linda Ballanbow.
Okay.
The FBI analyzed the bloody clump of hair that was found, and it was indeed linked to Linda. But it wasn't until 2019 that he was officially tied to that crime.
Because of the
DNA.
science, the DNA of it? Okay.
Uh-huh.
All right.
In 1999, he was charged with the murder of a 13-year-old girl named Jane Dura. She'd been raped, beaten, and strangled. He was waiting for a trial for her murder when he died in prison in December of 2008. He's, obviously a suspect in several other murders, ones that he was charged with, and his own sister said she attributes as many as 10 homicides to him.
Wow.
Yeah. I still think it's so fascinating that he's prosecuted and kept off the street for 40 years on a nobody case. God bless New Jersey and the DAs in 1975.
No.
So this is from the New York Times in 1972. 1972 New York Times. did a front page article. The slayer of a 19-year-old Seton Hall co-ed being sought by the police may bear the marks of a brutal struggle. His victim was left in a secluded tree-fringed lot in a quiet residential section. Investigators reported finding a bloody male undershirt under the body of the girl, Ann Logan, along with a blood-smeared rock, which they believe may have been the murder weapon. The police said indications that the struggle took place outside the victim's automobile. Its exterior was smeared with blood, but the interior was unsoiled. The body was found yesterday in a muddy lot, which was reachable by foot on East 8th Avenue. The paved residential street leads into a spot known as a local trysting ground and an illegal dumping ground for automobile parts, bed springs, and other household objects.
Okay.
The girl's routine was to drive from her home in Elizabeth to the Shop and Stop supermarket in nearby Garwood, where she worked nights for the last 6 months as the supervisor of checkouts.
Mm-hmm.
You have the feeling that whoever brought her here knew exactly what they were doing, a detective observed. The body clad in a maroon and white checkered shirt, wool sweater, blouse, and jacket lay a few inches from a thicket of tall grass that had been tramped down and twisted. The skirt and slip had been pulled out about the waist of the victim, and her underclothing, the police said, had been ripped off. An autopsy disclosed that death had been caused by a combination of multiple heavy blows to the head and face and strangulation with either a strap or bare hands or both.
Jesus.
Yeah. The manager of the Stop and Shop store said that Miss Logan was a competent, diligent worker who got along well with all of her fellow employees. She had left the store shortly after its closing at 11 p.m., apparently walked to her car parked in the brightly lighted customer parking area of a shopping mall in front of the store and drove away. When she failed to appear at the accustomed time at home before midnight, her father, who is a products research vice president of Thomas and Betts Company in Elizabeth, New Jersey, began telephoning friends, hospitals, and the police in an effort to locate his daughter. About 100 people attended a noon mass for Miss Logan at Immaculate Conception Chapel in South Orange. There is nothing to tie him to her, but boy, that sure is his MO, isn't it?
Yeah, okay. There wasn't anything specific.
He admitted to killing so many people and then would not help police with, Right. So here we are in February of 2016, more than a half a century. The relatives of Mary Agnes Klinsky know who's responsible for her murder. She was, murdered in 1965. Robert Zarinsky died in 2008. And her 71-year-old sister-in-law, Margaret Klinsky, said, "We're glad it's solved, but it doesn't bring her back."
Right.
Her body was found near Telegraph Hill off Garden State Parkway southbound entrance, now known as Exit 116. She had been raped and beaten to death. Recently, with the advances in amplifying, detecting DNA evidence retained from the Klinsky murder, can you imagine? Almost 50 years later. Wow. I love that with all my heart. Were re-examined when a DNA profile of the suspect was determined. Investigators linked DNA and corroborative evidence to Zarinsky. The dogged determination of our investigators and those at the New Jersey State Police has finally provided some closure for the Klinsky family, said acting Monmouth County Prosecutor Christopher Giamacone. After more than half a century, they know who killed their sister, and residents of Monmouth County have a clearer understanding of the murderous reach of one of our most notorious serial killers in our history. I'm grateful for all the hard work and commitment exhibited by those consummate professionals. If Zarinsky was alive today, he would be prosecuted for the homicide and sexual assault. To my knowledge, this is the oldest homicide case we've ever solved, said First Assistant Prosecutor Mark Lemieux. Mary Klinsky is the first person Zarinsky is accused of killing, even though he was imprisoned in 1975 for Rosemary Calandriello. Right. We're investigating all cold cases during that time frame. If there's any information that's developed that supports Robert Zarinsky is involved, we will investigate that to the fullest. Her sister-in-law said she was a beautiful girl with auburn hair, blue eyes, and was a senior at a high school. She was a young girl, and she did all the regular things girls did, and she deserved to live.
Wow.
yeah, I mean, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She would have graduated that year, said her sister-in-law. She was last seen by her sisters seated alone on a bench near the boardwalk at 9 p.m. on September 15th of 1965. She was on her way to mail a letter to a 20-year-old sailor aboard the USS Mauna Loa in the Mediterranean.
Oh, no.
They'd planned to get engaged when he returned. She was found dead the next afternoon by a Garden State Parkway maintenance man.
Jesus.
We're glad it's solved, but it really doesn't bring her back. And that's all I have to say. I get it, Miss Klinsky, 71 years old, and you're revisiting a case from 50 years ago of your sister-in-law.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you're grateful that somebody found some, DNA.
Yeah, sure.
But it doesn't bring her back. That's absolutely true. I hate serial killer cases, and I hate cases about children. So this is one that was, I didn't want to do. But I thought his case was so fascinating, and with the updates in DNA.
Right.
I mean, his youngest, as far as we know, victim is 13 years old. That's a child. I don't like to talk about that. His other, victims were 17, 18, 19, still young women,
right.
In some cases, children. But I do think it's important to understand that even all these years later, in the words of Dr. David Middleman, if you've left your DNA, you're already caught.
That's it. Well,
I love that.
Yeah, 40 whatever years later. Yeah.
Can you believe that? What a journey. And it's, her sister-in-law's right. Margaret's right. It doesn't bring her back. We're glad it's solved, but it doesn't bring her back.
Yeah.
I mean, cut down before your life's even really started.
Yeah. God.
And I will say he picked very beautiful victims. And another thing that's fascinating, and I hope to learn more about profiling, which I'll be taking a profiling class coming up.
Okay.
His victims looked all very different.
Oh.
Blonde, brunette, auburn hair.
Okay. Doesn't have a type. It's fine.
Yeah. It would be nice to pin something down, but sure. He liked beautiful young girls.
Yeah. Well,
and they were beautiful. I do have to say, if you have time, look up Robert Zarinsky. And then one of the last pictures is when he looks really, really sick. Oh, and he doesn't have any hair and his eyes are sunken. And it's like, yeah. I mean, he got to live basically most of his life in prison.
Right. Taunting.
Died. Yeah.
Taunting.
Yeah.
In a way, winning.
In a way, winning. I hate to say that, but you're right. I mean, he was caught fairly early, but not before he did a whole lot of damage. But yeah, he spent most of his life in prison and would say, I can help you solve 10 cases. And then when they didn't give him less time, then he wouldn't tell him anything else.
Right. Yeah.
This is just, I know there's a whole lot of bad people. I just choose to believe there are so many more good ones. But to me, he's really almost the definition of evil.
Yeah.
He really just almost is. So if you want to suggest a case to us that's not about a serial killer or children, I'd be really grateful. But I do have to say, whoever sent me that, and I apologize because it was a while ago. I forgot who sent me. What a fascinating case. Yeah, and when I was digging deeper, I was like, this guy, we do need to talk about him.
Yeah.
Because people need to know you can be the worst of the worst, and yet someday they can get you.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I want to try and take away from this was that he got caught on a body they couldn't find and indicted and prosecuted and convicted. And I was so happy about that. And then, others tied to him posthumously, which sucks, but we know even how much more of a monster he was.
Totally.
So if you have a tip on a missing person or unsolved homicide, or you just want to suggest a case, give us a call at 832-TIPSTER. That's 832-847-7837. You can always email us at jttipsters@gmail.com. You can find us on any of the social media platforms, just the Tipsters Facebook page, JT Tipsters on Instagram, JT Tipsters Pod on Twitter, and more cowbell.
If you would like to support this podcast and get early access and other cool murderous swag, go to patreon.com/justthetipsters.